friends, breath with friends, breath with friends, it's never going to end.
Žere hlavně pražáky, jmenuje se Jožin. Jožin s Pážin, močálem se blíží. Jožin s Pážin, k vesnici se blíží. Jožin s Pážin.
It's connecting audio. Yes.
There we go.
Hey, do you want to put your camera so it's like horizontal, so maybe more frame will come in there? Ooh.
Yep.
Nice. You're a professional.
Zoom does that weird thing where if you start off like this, you look sideways at first.
Yeah.
So
Be on your obviously on your phone.
Yeah.
Do you like the results of it? Like,
depends on the newer device.
what do you
Depends
use?
on if it's well, the phone is an iPhone 14 Pro, whereas my laptop is a MacBook Pro, but it's from 2015, so the technology is a little bit older. So I do like the phone a little bit more. Yeah.
Well, welcome to the show, Spencer Kramber. We've already started. This is my 93rd episode of Breath with Friends. Thanks for coming on the show. We've got a lot to cover. Just let me know. We can run as long and as low as you want to go. But I usually like to do like a past, present, and future sort of scenario, but go wherever you want. And, sometimes like I don't want to repeat questions that you've already been asked in other interviews and chit chats and stuff like that. So if there's some things that it's a pretty free form, unscripted show.
Yeah.
Begun. So this is Spencer Kramber. He's a working actor. I met him back in the Dudley days. We can go. Let's go back to little Spencer Kramber as a child. What brought you to this moment in history on the 93rd episode of Breath with Friends? Let's go way back and come this way.
All right, dude. Well, Brett, first of all, thanks for having me on. We've been bumping into each other for so many years now, whether it's up in Westwood out on the street or walking by our old places on Dudley Avenue in Venice. It's just been absolutely amazing running into you. And it's just the universe saying we have to do this and stay in touch.
I've been trying to get you here forever, but this is great. This is perfect.
I love this. Yes. So yeah, man, I'm originally from a really small town in Minnesota, a one-stoplight county. I grew up on a fishing resort from when I was 2 to 9 years old. My parents managed to own a fishing resort called Lake Granu Resort. And I grew up there. That was my formative years. I was a little Tom Sawyer, Huck Finn, toads in my pockets, just running around in mud and on docks and causing all types of trouble and hanging out with a lot of strangers. So it was very apropos for my eventual future on Venice Beach.
Oh, perfect.
And then just had kind of the normal high school experience. In the fourth of 5 kids. So I had 3 older siblings who were paving the way for me. And I was an overachiever in high school, 3-sport athlete, all the arts, choir, drama, speech, student government, all that type of stuff. Exhausted myself. So when I went to college, I decided to be a theater major. Wanted to be an actor and just said I was going to focus on acting, school, and having a good time. And I achieved all 3 of those things. I had a great time. I was out, graduated Minnesota State Mankato in 4 years. And then I'd never left Minnesota really. So I packed up my bags and I moved to Ireland, moved to Dublin for 6 months.
How old
I lived there for
How old are you?
22.
Oh, perfect.
22. Yeah. I wanted to go across the pond and had a crush on Ireland. So I lived there for 6 months on a student visa. And when the visa expired, I came back to Minnesota, worked out of a suitcase for 2 years, being a professional actor, traveling around the country, doing touring theater with the Boston Chamber Theater, National Theater for Children, Shakespeare in the Park, Minneapolis. And had a great time. And I eventually applied for grad schools that brought me out to LA. I got accepted to UCLA. So I came out here, and that's when I kind of got close to you. In 2000, I started the MFA acting program at UCLA.
And were you living in Venice? Were you living in Venice when you did this?
So I moved into the Blue House at good old 52 Dudley Avenue in 2002. So It was right before my 3rd year of UCLA is when I moved down into 52 Dudley. And that's where we met. We were neighbors. And then, yeah, man.
That's a whole other conversation.
whole nother world.
Well, we're gonna get
When
into
I
that though. We're gonna get we're gonna
when I
we're gonna get to that.
graduated in '03, and this will lead into kind of like the what I do now. I didn't have any jobs lined up. I didn't have any kind of like professions, just the way to pay the rent, as it were, to secure myself. So I eventually got work in casting, which is what I'm still doing today. I'm a session director for casting directors. And what happened in '03 is I was trying to find work, and I reached out to a professor, and I said, "Hey, you work at Sony? Can you get me on the lot as a production assistant, anything like that?" And he's like, "No, no, no. You got to get into casting. You got to be a reader for auditions or something like that. You've got all this acting experience." And so I started cold calling around to casting directors that I would find just through a simple Google search. And one of them, Mimi Webb Miller, I honed in on her because she lived in Venice. And I was like, oh, I got it. She's a Venice connection. And I was leaving her this bleeding heart voicemail. And in the middle of it, she picked up the phone and she was like, "How can I help you, honey?" with a sweet Texan accent. I was like, "Oh my God." And she said, "Okay, come up to my office, drop off your resume, and we'll see what we can do." And I did. And I followed the advice of a friend of mine, and I stuffed it with chocolate. This is back when you had paper resumes. And I put a bunch of chocolate into the manila envelope. I dropped it off. They called me in. They trained me as a session director, but she didn't work much. So then she said, "Well, just since I'm not working this next like 2, 3 months, just come up to the studio and hang out, and something will happen. People kind of know you there now." So I did. And then the manager of the facility saw me hanging out, and he was like, "Hey, what's your story?" I told him I was looking for work. And he said, "Well, I was the assistant manager and I just got promoted to manager and I need an assistant. Would you be interested in trying it out?" I said, "Yes." For 3 years, I worked there about 60 hours a week, and I learned everything about the commercial casting business. Opened the shop, closed the shop, made duplicates of the tapes, trained session directors, did the invoicing, took care of the equipment, all that type of stuff. It was absolutely amazing. In '06, it closed, and then I became what I do now, which is a freelance session director. So if you're a casting director and you're looking to hire somebody to run your sessions, tape and direct your actors for their auditions, please hire me because I'm available. I love working. And then I also still work as an actor. Been in about 50 plus commercials, handful of TV episodes. Got a feature film that I shot a couple years ago with J.K. Simmons that should be coming out here pretty soon called "You Can't Run Forever," which was an amazing experience. And then I also teach. I teach with independently and also with Keep It Real Acting online class where I'm one of the commercial acting teachers. That's been about what I've been doing for the last 16 years. Don't live on Venice Beach anymore. I moved out of the Blue House in '09, down to Windward Circle till 11, up to Westwood until 2017, and now I'm back here. I'm back in Palms near Culver City.
And so when I saw you and I was eating at that place, that restaurant in Westwood, and you had scrubs on, what were you doing?
Good. Yeah, that's a whole nother chapter. So
Let's talk
in
about it.
2016, um, as we all do when we hit our 40s, I started thinking about a second career. The acting was something that I was pursuing through my 20s and 30s, and in my 40s, I had a child.
Congratulations.
In Thank you very much. My little daughter Beckett in 2013, and was looking for some stability. So I went back to school to become a licensed phlebotomist, a blood draw technician at UCLA, and
Well, that
I
makes
did
perfect
it.
sense coming from Hollywood, all the vampires, you're taking blood. It was a good transition.
I like to take things from people for sure. Well, the
Their
funny thing
soul.
was, I would do a lot of donations myself up at UCLA Blood and Platelet Donation Center. Just one of those things where I like to give, and um, and then I thought about it. I was like, wow, I'd like to get consistent work, and wow, these people see, these technicians bring somebody in, they make them feel comfortable. They walk them through a process that's pretty short. They get something from them, and then they send them on their way, which is very much what I do when I'm auditioning actors. And I was like, I could do this. And I went back to school for like 8 weeks, and I did my 100 blood withdrawals from people through my externship, and I got hired at the place where I had the idea, the UCLA Blood and Platelet Donation Center. But I only worked there for a couple of months because the schedule was so strict. It was especially for 6 months in like your probationary period, and you couldn't have any changes to the schedule. And being a single dad, having my daughter on certain days, it just wasn't going to work. So we decided to split separate ways. I still have my license. I'm still a licensed phlebotomist. I keep on renewing that, but I'm continuing. I went right back into casting and doing everything that I do and love, and it definitely was a better fit to keep on doing what I am doing.
But actually, as an actor, or like the Daniel Day-Lewis sort of like checking things out, you'd be able to nail a role of a phlebotomist in a movie, no problem.
The funny thing is how often when I was at like the UCLA hospital, I'd be wearing a white jacket and my scrubs, and I'm in my 40s, so people would come up to me thinking I was a doctor. And I was like,
yeah, like a god
yes.
complex. That would give you a guy walking around in Westwood in your robes. Yes, I'm the healer.
Yes.
No, so and we'll get off this topic and go back to Venice Beach in a second. But how do you not get queasy on that job? How do you because I had some blood drawn recently when I got my colonoscopy, and they couldn't find the vein, and they were punching me full of holes like 7 times or something. But you're in a state of laying down. What are you're not going to run out of the room. But like I was like, they finally got to the hand. The 1/3 doctor in the background was like, get the hand. It's always good in the hand. And
Yep.
so that's that one. And they got it. And that one you feel. That one you feel.
Yes. Yeah. I have really good veins. So when we were in class and people needed to pass their test, everyone was asking me to be their partner.
Oh.
Because everyone was like, I kid you not, I would be stuck twice here. I'd be stuck over here. My hands would have all these holes, and they're like, Spencer, I got to pass this test. Can I please stick you? Because I got to make sure I can find the vein. And yeah, I got veins all over the place. I don't do too bad with queasiness. When I was in my early 20s, I also worked as a non-emergency medical van driver. I was a Medivan driver. I would drive people to dialysis appointments, medical appointments, children to the Children's Hospital back in Minnesota. So I got pretty comfortable with just being in hospitals in general, which I know a lot of people aren't, which I get. I could never be a lawyer. When the tension in courthouses, that energy, nobody is there for a good reason. Nobody is there happy or anything else like that. I've had to be in a courthouse a couple of times, and I'm just like, oh, this sucks. I would much rather be in a hospital if anything else. But making somebody feel comfortable in the hospital is definitely something that I'm able to do. Now, I didn't have to see too much. Now, just the blood is fine, but if I had to be like an OR assistant or something like that, yeah, then I might be seeing some. Or if I had to show up, like be in law enforcement and show up at houses to see dead bodies, yeah, that could be tough.
I remember years ago, I was in Oregon, and it was like, I don't forget when, it's before COVID and all that stuff, and I was over there, I was looking for work, and there's this thing on Craigslist about this, to do a job where you go pick up bodies. And I talked to them, and it was like a mom and pop operation. I talked to the guy, is this a real job? Is like, he goes, yeah, they call you in when there's a wreck on the side of the road, and you pick up the body and stuff like that, or if there's a house. And we talked to the guy for like half an hour. He's an older gentleman, but I was like, for a second, I was contemplating doing it, but then I was like, the realization of it, like going into somebody's apartment and flipping over a bloated dead body and trying to get out of there. I was like, oh, I mean, this is somebody's job to do this. And I don't know, man. That takes a different kind of break. Do you think is there a connection between being a very disciplined actor, or is there a same sort of gene in that as there is in doing the technical kind of work it takes to be in the medicine world?
Well, yeah, that's a great question, man. Because I think as an actor and an artist, life is just research. So anything that I get put into, I just look at it as an opportunity to expand who I am, my personality, my experience, and apply it to whatever I do as an artist, whether it's playing a role or anything else like that. So when I was in high school, kind of junior high, so I started off in Boy Scouts in like 5th grade, and I became friends with all these dudes.
Mhm.
And we, of course, all had crushes on the whole ultra male action movies of the 80s. Rambo, Commando, Schwarzenegger, Stallone, all these type of things. So
Cobra,
Cobra, gotta love Cobra. That car was so sweet, and the glasses and everything.
the toothpick.
Gotta have a toothpick. And we got into very much like a military fetish throughout junior. We got BDUs and Atlas gear, and we had the guns. We looked crazy. And we'd go out and do like hikes in the middle of the night in Minnesota in the winter, and we did all these like fake military operations. And we weren't like we were making bombs and stuff, but just to like blow up garbage cans and stuff like that. Today, we totally would have been on a list. We completely talk about that. We would have been on a list so quick. And the police department did know us. Well, a lot of the guys eventually went on to have military careers in the army, a couple of major or
No
lieutenants,
shit. You guys are blowing shit up as a
captain.
kid. Yeah, you guys were totally. They just kept it going. You like, that's like,
Yeah, had a
where else? Where else are
marine
they gonna go with that?
in the group, and they all came back to me and said the shit that we were doing in junior high and high school was a lot cooler than what they ended up doing in the actual military. But I realized I don't really want to do this. I just like playing pretend.
Yeah, yeah.
I like just so anything that I do, I also just I'm like, okay, this isn't really what I'm doing. I'm just kind of playing a role right now,
Mhm.
which maybe isn't what you want to hear from somebody who's sticking a needle in your arm. But I'm not being a brain surgeon or anything like that. And I was able to find veins pretty good. I think the thing that made me most comfortable as a phlebotomist was just making people feel comfortable.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so you've been acting for like a really, really long time. And I think
Hmm.
when I first met you in Venice, I didn't realize that. I'm only realizing that right now because I thought you were just another actor and stuff like that. But how would you, it's almost like a two-part question. Like growing up and around that area and having that at the time that you had that as the age you were and doing things you were doing in the industry, cut to 2023. How can you give us the major changes that you've seen doing what you do and being in that world and the internet coming and then coming into, you know, now where Zoom and all these different medias and which everyone's got a podcast and all that shit and so many ways to distribute content. Can you just give us like what you've learned in a nutshell with their, I mean, or your observations during that, like journalistically, or and then I also want to get into after that the discipline that has taken you to do what you do and also remain creative.
Absolutely, dude. And nailing it right on the head. When I was in grad school and undergrad, so undergrad from 94 to 98, and then grad school from 2000 to '03, uh, it was very traditional schooling. You know, you're taking theater and speech, acting classes, scene study, or you're working on acting styles. So maybe you're doing a Greek scene or lots of Shakespeare, which is all great. And like math, it's not so much that you might use it one day, it's just expanding yourself, which is good. But at that time it was still VHS tapes, you know, people are recording things digitally, photos are different. And then you usher in the digital age, you know, YouTube and around what, '07, and digital cameras and everything else, and everything changes. And the best way I can put it now is a couple years ago, I had this revelation about the career of an actor. It's especially when I became a phlebotomist, and I had someone in my life who was also seeking a career and had to go through training and then a series of interviews, applications, and interviews just to get their job, and then do their job, and that was their career. Like, this is my job. I show up 5 days a week. I punch in the clock and I make my salary and so on and so forth. And this is going to be, maybe I'll switch, go to a different company, or take a little bit of a lateral move or something like that. But for the most part, that is their career. When I looked, so I compared that to the career of an actor, where you go through your training and then you come out into the world. And then here's the phrase: the career of the actor is waiting for the opportunity to interview for a temp position. All acting gigs are temp positions, unless you're one of the 6 voiceovers on The Simpsons or Pat Sajak or Vanna White. They're all temp positions. They happen for a little bit. Might be a day, might be maybe a couple weeks if you're on a film, or a couple months. If you're lucky enough to land a recurring role on a television series, then it's a couple years. But they're temp positions. And that was really daunting to kind of put into that frame of reference. I was like, wow, if you're looking for stability, this is not the career for you. And that, I suppose, could be kind of related to a lot of different things. What I shared that once with a friend of mine, Alex Chiano, and he had this great perspective on it. And he goes, I told him that, and he just said, well, stop waiting. And his point was, we are in an era now where you can self-create. And that's something I think a lot of people aren't teaching. A lot of universities, if they're smart, they are starting to teach this. Let's stop the waiting process. How do you self-produce? How do you write for yourself? Shoot for yourself? Market for yourself? Direct, edit, put the music together. Everything is there now too. These phones, these cameras have better cameras and technology on them than a lot of things. People are shooting entire films on their phones and putting music to it and everything else. And then you have all these platforms, Instagram, social, Facebook, TikTok, that you can self-produce and show yourself on, and all these other type of things. So it's all there now. The thing is, actors just traditionally haven't thought that way. They always just thought of themselves as the talent and the performer, and they're looking for someone else to do all the production value around them. And we have to change. That is what has changed, my friend, is that we have gone from just waiting for the opportunities to now you really have to create the opportunities yourself. There's still the traditional path of, I get an agent, I get a manager, I wait for to get the email notification from them. Hey, you have an audition, and that still very much happens, and it's great. But if it doesn't, what are you doing to get yourself out there? Are you creating little videos? Are you doing stand up? Are you finding places where you can go perform and kind of do your own performances? So that's the main thing I've noticed. Now, you've also worked with talent, and I know you're an artist as well. Have you kind of discovered that for yourself in that kind of like digital transition? Have you heard that from other people, or
Yeah,
what's been kind of your intake?
I mean, yeah, it's that, but it's the same. The form has changed, but we're still doing the same shit. Even when I was a young artist or filmmaker, I was still producing and creating paintings and little movies. So it's the same thing now. It's just been retrofitted. I think it's been opened up. Like, I remember growing up and going, because we used to have HBO and the zoom in on which looked like you're flying into the vortex of the HBO silver logo. And,
Love that intro. Yes.
Yeah, they did that with like silver. I saw the making of that. I'm a cinephile by baby. I love like Ray Harryhausen and anyways, all the Chuck Jones, Tex Avery, the Kandinsky, Van Gogh, the Da Vinci. Anyways, all those influences, Frazetta, Ralph Bakshi, all those things. Like, people are still creating content. It's just we have more tools to do it at a cheaper thing. Like, I remember creating portfolios. You'd get the book. I'd get the pictures of my paintings blown up to like 11 by 14 or 12 by 16 or something like that. So it's loaded. And I'd make physical copies of the scripts, all the posters, all these things. Now it's like the same thing, but it's opened up. And I don't think that we all wanted to have our own network was a point. We all wanted to have our own television network, like a SCTV or something, Python or something. That was I don't know.
BW.
Yeah. And now
Brett
we
Woods.
have that. And now we have that. And now we have that. We really do. We have it. And I don't think it's a bad thing. It's just you remember that famous Francis Ford Coppola quote about where the next revolution in filmmaking was going to come. Like, he did this answer to this question, like, and I'm probably butchering the hell out of it, but this was like 25 years ago. Where's the next revolutionary filmmaker going to come from? And he goes, probably like a 14-year-old girl in the middle of nowhere. And that was like 25 years ago. So this is not it's just having more playful tools to extend and tell the story and create new media, which is changing the face of the complete entertainment landscape.
And to your point, you're doing that now. This is your podcast. Would you say 93 episodes?
Yeah, baby.
I mean, this is it. You've created your own content, and kudos to you, man. You stopped waiting, like you said. You produced it and created it, and so you're a living testament to it.
Well, we'll see. We have a small but vigilant viewing audience, and we're growing. And I think it's about the capturing moments, really. These are time capsules. I got like 30 or 40 hours of video that I shot in Venice that I haven't edited yet, of interviews and time capsules. But like this takes very little effort. People want to do these things in person, but it's easier to do it this way. And actually, I like the format of it. It's simple.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need bells and whistles. It's not what might make an interesting conversation and a relatable situation. Also, I'm learning a lot as well. And also,
and what's
you
nice,
edit and do it yourself, and you don't need other people to do it.
and what I do like about this now too is when it comes to the publicity elements is that we are able to amplify. I love amplifying. I have somebody who I'm passionate about, and I see what they're doing as an artist, as a creator, whatever it might be. And I'm able to say, you know what, I have this number of followers. I'm going to share what you're doing, and I can amplify your message, your vision, whatever it might be. So, so I look forward to whatever comes of this episode, is being able to share it with my group and get what you're doing out there, and hopefully get more followers for you, because these are the new TV channels. These are the new networks.
Well, I can't even watch streaming. People are like talking about streaming. Have you been watching the streaming thing, streaming this? I don't have Game of Thrones ruined that for me. I was so emotionally invested in Game of Thrones, and when that took a dipshit down like the crappiest, like my heart broke. Like I was going to bars like 25 minutes away so I could watch it, the last season, and then it just broke me. I was like, I'm never gonna watch a streaming show and get invested in it ever again, probably. Because
we have too much
more media too.
I definitely think that this is more accessible, and I am concerned that we are getting oversaturated. The market is getting oversaturated with content. We have so many channels now, and we only have time, and our eyeballs are finite. We only have so many things we can watch. So whenever someone's come up to me and like, oh, are you watching this show? I'm like, no, because I don't have time. I'm creating my own life. I'm living my own life. I just can't sit around and watch other people's lives. Oh, you got to watch this thing. I'm like, well, you're the 10th person to tell me that I've got to watch something, and there's only so much. So I love this format because I'm able to, whether I just listen to it in the car, or watch this in pieces, is I can pick up pieces of information from you or your guests, and consume it in an easier fashion.
And yeah, it's I like when we were doing short films, like even growing up doing films, or like, no, it's got to be a feature film. It's got to be a feature film. It's got to be 92 pages. It's got to be a feature, 96 pages, maybe 200. But you're getting crazy if you want to get that made. And I was like, but that was the goal. And I love movies. I still want to do Return to Sender and all that stuff. That's the whole reason why I make this podcast, is to make that movie. And but like I couldn't believe at the time the concept of short, like 20-second videos. Like, who's gonna watch that? What kind of nuts? This is like 30 years ago, but it was like, but it's amazing. I don't know. It's just really, really the future, really. And where's okay now? We, and I don't want to get that point out, but the seeing where it's been. I always like to do a little crystal ball, because you can measure things in like momentums and periods, and like the the industrial age to now, like with all the different things. Like, what do you see the pattern going forward?
Couple of thoughts. I remember one of my professors, Dr. Ron Lawson, in back at Mankato, he always said the word holograms, and whether it's AI performances. I was seeing something online the other day of a person, but it was completely AI, computer generated, and freakishly realistic. So just keep all that kind of technological involvement there, and not just physically, but also vocally, bringing in performances from a computer that was completely computer generated, hearing their voice. So whatever that might entail, just as the career of an actor, how soon we might just be completely replaced by computers or holograms, who knows? Instead of going to see a play with live performers, we might be seeing a play where it's just a hologram of a performer. And that sounds terrifying. I don't like that. But the thing I always keep in mind is with the crystal ball element is it sounds impossible now, but look back 100 years and it's going to be normal. And that's the thing, is where we were 100 years ago today is it seems completely, everything that we have now just seems completely, be able to watch people on a box or a screen or anything like that. Back then they were like, what are you talking about? I have to see my vaudeville show or anything else like that. So and then I also am reminded of the movie Idiocracy, with classic, and seeing the guy in his chair just watching people get hit in the nuts and thinking that was hysterical. And there's definitely some videos that I watch and I think, well, shoot, we are definitely going down that road of like entertainment is no longer Shakespeare level writing and cathartic moments, reflecting society and behavior and everything else like that. It's just the person getting hit in the nuts.
Yeah.
And
nuts are getting hit in the nuts is always funny. It's like a fart. They're always good. It's a good go-to.
And this is what I was going to say about the 20-second movie is, so I had another professor, I'm going to drop a lot of names here, the late Gil Cates, who was president of the DGA and dean of the theater department at UCLA, and produced the Oscars like 13 times. And he always pounded into us this simple storytelling elements. No matter what you're doing as a storyteller, whether it's a 90-page feature or a 20-second video, as long as you have exposition, conflict, and then resolution. You have a character that has a want and an objective, and then there's an obstacle, and either they get it, which is a comedy, or they don't, which can be a tragedy. That is what captivates our human nature. That is what will draw us in. And even if it's a 6-second old Vine video, two people walking by a pool, and then a person pushes the other person in, and how that other person reacts to it, and how the other character reacts to it, and they keep on living their lives. And that is what draws us in. And as long as we have that, and that's where I get concerned when, I have a daughter, and you're talking kind of about the future, and she likes to watch content on like YouTube Kids, and it's not vetted with some of these platforms. Anyone can put up anything. The only way it's vetted is by people saying they like it or they don't. So it's all just public opinion now. But if you're watching something on Netflix, Disney Plus, one of the network streaming services or channels or something like that, there's a group of people who are collaborating to discuss the merits of this project. You have the writers, they bounce it off producers and directors, and then you have sound people who are coming in with their opinions, and everyone's trying to figure out, what are we trying to tell the story here or whatever else. Where if you're a creator on YouTube and you just create your thing and you put it up there, is there a storytelling element to it, or is it just one person? I think of the unboxing videos. You have a person who I want to open up this box and see what's inside of it. We have a character with that. They open it up, and now the conflict is, are they going to like it or not? And they have to check it out, and they're looking at everything. That's the obstacle. And then there's a resolution at the end. I like it or I don't. Yeah. Which is a whole nother element that our society is falling into, where everything is either great or it sucks. And there's nothing in the middle anymore. It seems like you can't go to a movie and walk out and be like, it was fine, it was good. And if you say that, people immediately think, oh no, yeah, like that, what a horrible, that sounds awful. I'm like, no, I didn't say it was awful. I said it was just fine. I'm not saying don't go see it, and I'm also not going to pedestal it as the greatest movie ever. But we've really fallen into that mentality, which can be dangerous. Sometimes I think it's okay for things to just be okay. I saw an interview with Marlon Brando the other day, and Connie Chung was saying, you're being touted as the greatest actor ever. And he's like, that's wrong. I'm an actor, but to say I'm the greatest, that the pressure that puts upon somebody. And here's what's really going on with the mentality of the youth in our generation. It's easier to be horrible than great. So kids will fall into this trap, and people and kids of all ages, 8 to 80, will fall into this trap of like, well, since I can't be the greatest because that takes too much work, then I might as well be the worst. And I think that's a really dangerous mindset that we have. So it all kind of connects together. Is we see horrible content, then we strive, we lower our standards. But when you're reading Shakespeare, really amazingly produced contents, then we strive to match that.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we got to keep on doing, is reaching for those stars. A lot of stuff there to unpack. Sorry.
No,
A lot of things
you want
going
to
on.
keep your feet on the ground and your eyes towards the stars.
Yeah, very much.
Always. Yeah, it's but and while you're talking about that, I was like, that's always there's just a lot of creativity going on at once, and there's gonna always be the sparks that shine and fall into the collective consciousness, and then people grab it and they don't. But that there are always peaks and valleys and everything. But it is celebration of mediocrity. But that's just a genre now. That's just you can do that and watch, The Bachelorette or whatever. But I don't think it's necessarily bad. But you're not going to stop. It's not stopping at this point. But the last movie I wanted to see, and I saw it twice, and I did a review of it. To two different reviews. There's a 2D review of Avatar 2, and then a 3D mushroom review. Because when I saw it in 2D, I had to I didn't pick out the seats. I was with a group of people that I would have waited and seen it in 3D on IMAX. And so yeah, it wasn't a big baseball screen, but I liked it 2D, but the dialogue sucks, the story is mediocre, but the visuals are still there. And I was like, I'm gonna have to take some mushrooms and see this in 3D, because I think this would be a good idea. Because if I can get past the other stuff, it might be amazing. And so, in fact, it is a 3D mushroom movie. Because the visuals alone, if you do it right, is great. It's 3 hours. It's a good, do a mushroom, whatever your dosage is, like 20 or 30 minutes beforehand. It's 3 hours, and you're right in the pocket. And but I don't know if I'd want to. That's the only thing that would have brought me to a movie theater right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. There's just so much. I'm making a lot of paintings as well, and I'm sure you're creating a lot of stuff. And the less time we have, that's why the whole thing's upside down. Because the media that that we grew up with, obviously, but this is everything this is like a genie's dream come true. In hindsight, if you were to ask a 12-year-old kid back in 1985 what they just want to do stuff and make movies or create things or have fun with their friends. And now it's just blowing up, which is great. I think it's interesting. It's a very, people are putting their, I don't know. It's just, I like things that are interesting to me about things like this is it's immediate. And that's not what I'm finding for other content. Like I want to see things that are done today. Like people are talking about something right now, or even making things that are, visually like now. But so AI, sorry, a minute.
Oh, it just blows my mind too that so much content of being on the idea of now is created, commenting on things now, and a lot of work goes into it. There is a lot of effort to create things, and then it just gets it doesn't get revisited. It's so in the moment. And if you do a search for it or something like that, but otherwise it doesn't really come up because content is constantly being created. So when you said you saw a movie twice, I was like, holy moly, I haven't heard of anybody watching a movie twice in a long time. You think about the times when we would collect DVDs of our favorite
Why is this
movies.
you like movies like 4 days a week?
Me? No, that's
but I used to remember seeing movies so often.
Yes.
It was that was a no-brainer. We were in the movie theater.
I'm going to watch Lord of the Rings again, or, I'm going to, revisit this movie over and over. And now I watch a movie once and that's it. It's rare for me to rewatch a movie. I think the last movies that I really rewatched a couple times were the Dark Knight series. I'm a huge Christopher Nolan fan. And he creates material that you can rewatch several times, especially with the way he plays with time and everything else. The first time you watch it, you have to be like, okay, I got to watch this one again. I got to kind of figure this out. But again, there's so much content and our time is so finite. It's hard to revisit something. Also, television and things that are smaller. I can get, if I'm scrolling through YouTube, I can see, if I see something that's like 30 minutes long, I'm like, oh, I don't have time for that. But if it's 5 to 10 minutes, I'm like, okay, I can squeeze that in and get a couple of, 3 different stories in 30 minutes versus just one story in 30 minutes. So I definitely find that, and that's the whole swipe mentality. I can get all this entertainment in just one after another in 1 minute, just
Oh
swiping
yeah.
through, watching a funny little video.
If you're walking down any street on any given day, down an alleyway, or if waiters or bartenders taking breaks in the alleyway, or people from Jamba Juice are like underneath a palm tree for 10 minutes, they're on their phone. And there's hey, can you talk? I have to take a piss. Do you mind if I take a pee?
Commercial break. We'll be right back after this.
Bingo. 1 second. And if you want to talk about any projects we can grab a video of something and show it. So if you want to introduce something, I'll give me 30 seconds, 60 seconds.
No worries. I'll tap dance here.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're still recording or not. It's a beautiful day out here in Palms. Blue skies. We've been having this rain. I'm just talking to the audience now. Hi, everybody. It's blue. We've been having all this rain here for the last number of days, and it's been really nice. There's been some flooding, and some people don't like it, but we really needed this weather. And look at this, the sky is so nice. I wonder if I can flip this. Let's see. I tell other people how to do this. Yeah, there's that little camera right up there, and that's my kitchen. And then you can just kind of zoom in. Look at that. Yeah, nice. Big old billowy clouds, palm trees off in the distance. I'll flip it back to me. A lot of people don't know that. I was just doing a whole bunch of casting the other day where I had to get families to pretend like they were just in their natural environment playing games and such. And I had to teach everybody how to flip their camera. That was pretty cool. Oh, I turned off my video. Here, let me put that back on. There we go.
Did I miss anything?
I showed your audience the sky, the beautiful blue sky today, and we talked about the rain a little bit. And I taught them on your Zoom, you can flip your camera if you're on a phone, so that way you can shoot what you're seeing. And I was doing casting for a Walmart commercial where we had to see families, kind of like they're having their family gatherings during the holidays. And I would record me pretending to be like Uncle Spencer calling in. And someone would answer the phone and then go around the house, and everybody in the family who was part of the audition, these were non-actors, were all just like playing games or cooking or whatever. And it'd be like you, Brett, holding the phone and going around and just kind of like, hey, everyone was Uncle Spencer. It was so much fun. We had such a good time. And it was really fun at the end of it, telling whoever was in charge of the camera, being like, you're a really good camera operator. You should look into this. And they were always like, yeah, whoever. It was typically like I'd find the dad or the teenager was always really good at it, because I could like tap your screen, find the little icon that shows it flipping around, and they were like, okay, I got this. I can do it. Nice. It was fun.
So out of all those commercials, so you've been working in this field of Hollywood. Like let's get a little nuts and bolts and let me know. We can go as long as you want, but I really want to get to like we talked a little bit about the state of the industry, but like what's it like in those controlled environments, working in the commercials, like kind of like, I guess, corporate sort of filmmaking, like the technicality of being, like I remember you did that car commercial. What's it like? Do you feel like it's constricting because as a guy who like loves doing ensemble plays and stuff like that and dialogue and stuff like that, like the transition or is it fun to do that, to do those?
Yeah. First of all, I think every actor has a little bit of an attention whore syndrome to them, which is, and I think it kind of
is that an essential quality to a good actor? Is that essential?
I wouldn't say it's not. I wouldn't say it's not. So anytime you're on sets, and you got all the people around you, and the cameras are all pointed towards you, and you're the focal point. Yeah, you get jacked up. You get pretty fun. I had a co-star in Criminal Minds, and I had one line, and I had all these extras behind me, and I just knew that if I gave them any reason to say like, "Hey, Spence, why don't you go back to your trailer?" and they just turn to another actor and say, "You can say this line." It is exciting, whether you're just standing there or not, and it happens.
Can you describe that feeling of, like, can you give it a chemical or more of a physiology? What does it feel like?
The thing that I would say is I was terrified because I didn't want to fail, and I was my heart was pounding. And before I went on to set, I remember just like waiting to get on set and get us into the spot and everything. And you just never know if you're going to get mush mouth or anything else like that. And I remember my heart pounding and I was nervous. But a teacher, again, Gil Cates, gave us great advice. We were doing a scene at UCLA, and one of the actresses said, I'm scared." She was just like, "I'm scared." And not to get into like why she was scared or anything else like that. He goes, "Oh, that's good. Just do yourself a favor, and instead of saying like you're nervous or you're scared, say you're excited, because all this means is that it matters to you. It's very important. You want to succeed. You want to do your best, and you're afraid that you're going to fail and you're not going to do your best, and these other things won't come to fruition. But all it really means is that you're excited." So I just kept on smiling and telling myself, "This is exciting. It just means it's important to me." And it's for any actor that thinks like, "Oh, I just want to get on set and be a major star in these things and have these monologues." There's definitely a process to it, to kind of learn being on sets, who's who, the second AD versus the script supervisor. And there's a lot of a learning curve to go through, which is very important. So I appreciate the commercial world, which is where I primarily have worked, because it does give you the taste of being on a film. Commercial directors and everyone talks about these as 30-second films, not commercials. They look at it as things with a beginning, the middle, and an end. And boy, they're putting millions of dollars into these commercials that they're making. So it is pretty fun. One thing that comes to mind from the casting perspective of creating this content is, from a corporate perspective, I'm part of a machine. Whether I'm casting a commercial, I'm acting in a commercial, I'm teaching people how to do it, I'm helping McDonald's sell more burgers. And if you want to go down the rabbit hole of they're cutting down trees in the Amazon to do it, or whatever it might be, I'm selling cars for a car company that's polluting our ozone and whatever else. Yeah, it's not the most noble of things. So a long time ago, I looked at it a very macro perspective, and I was like, boy, I'm shelling for more, moving more product. So then I looked at it at a micro level. When I'm casting something, in that moment, I'm helping an artist, the actor who's coming in for this interview, the audition, get a little bit closer to their dream, get a little bit closer to financial security with a good paycheck so they can maybe do something with that money, getting closer to having good health insurance or lifetime health insurance or whatever that might be. So I do try to keep that perspective as I'm working in the commercial world, or whether it's if you're part of a movie or TV show. And when you hear of actors getting to that point in their career where they have choices like, "Oh, I chose this role because," that's really a luxury. A lot of people, a lot of actors don't have that luxury. Your manager sends you something, and if it pays what you want, and it's not something that you're completely morally against doing, you generally take it. And because the opportunities are so few and far between to work on things, that you got to be in a pretty good position to say, "No, I'm going to pass on this because it doesn't feel right for me." And that is empowering to be able to do, and you should have that type of power. But there's definitely a level. If you get something that you know is going to be seen, you generally say yes, because you need the resume. You need to build your credits.
Yeah, and as we get older, for me personally, let me know if this reflects on you, how you feel about it. But like I guess I'm okay doing what I do, creating art and making my little movies. I did them all my life so far. I'm not going to stop now. I mean, and so the pull to be in that arena that I grew up with as a child, had, at the silver screen, everything was bigger than life. Then getting to know it, even like in my adolescence, I knew when I was making movies that you're not going to be able to enjoy them as much because you're going to know how they're made. And but so every once in a while, when something does come and triggers me to like, oh, that made me feel like I was like 12 years old again. That's what we propelled us to do what we do, whether it was, creatively or what influenced us there. What were some of the things that influenced you to do that? Like movie stars or templates of people's careers, or, it sounds like you kind of made an agreement with yourself at an early age.
Two things I would say, and they're not really connected. One was stand-up comedy. And I've never been a stand-up comic. I did 3 minutes of an open mic one time, and it was terrifyingly exciting. And I would do it again. I was actually emailing with Flappers today in Burbank about taking a class. I just saw a friend, Rebecca Davis, do her first sets up at Flappers, and was very proud of her. And it's such a simple medium: person, microphone, if necessary.
Stripped down to the bones. It's very,
Really
very
down to it. Love it. Love it. And I think, and it is a good avenue for people wanting to get their content out and hopefully try to get to a point where they can be seen and do things. So I grew up watching, when I was in like fifth grade, HBO had that thing, and they would do a half hour comedy hour and stuff like that, Def Comedy Jam. And I just loved I watched the Comic Relief with Robin Williams and Billy Crystal and Whoopi Goldberg. Rodney Dangerfield introduced so many talent, and then all the characters back then, Dice Clay, Sam Kinison, Richard Lewis, Judy Tunda or whatever with the accordion, and Tenuta. Thank you. Just all these characters. It was such a fascinating time, and for me, and he's definitely been taken out of the system. But Bill Cosby and his old albums. Don't like what he ended up doing, but his content was amazing. He was a great
Norm, that was
storyteller.
Norm's bit. Norm Macdonald would always like, he's my favorite comic. He's my favorite comic in the world. He's the best. And I have an affinity for the comedy world as well, because it is a family, and like none other. Like I used to work at a comedy club called The Last Laugh in San Jose. I was the door guy. This is like I was probably like 22 or something like that. It was a dream job. And I got to meet all these comics, and I did demo reels for probably over 50 comics, because I was all going to film school there at West Valley. And I would edit and distribute. I would shoot their reels and their sets. And I got so insaturated. And my writing partner for Return to Sender, Steve Oakes, was in comedy for 25 years. Anyways, and Paul Provenz has been on the show. Anyways, the thing is, it's a family. It really is a family. It feels like I'm more so connected to that world in the entertainment world, like Mel Brooks, who's probably my favorite human being of all time. And it is you feel safe here in a weird way. I mean, I've met all sorts of comics but there is a familiarity with them, a kinship that I've always shared with that world.
Now, the second part from my youth that I just discovered probably about a year ago. One of the YouTube rabbit holes I go down to visit my youth is old school wrestling, right? 80s WWF, all that stuff. Because I was a kid, I loved Saturday Night main events and the WrestleManias, and I wanted to be big and strong like Hogan or whatever. So I see an Andre. Oh yeah, Macho Man. And I see, YouTube knows me too well. They'll be like, Spencer hasn't been on here. Let's send the algorithm will send me an Andre the Giant's. How many, cans of beer did he drink one night? And I just fall down this rabbit hole. And now, being the thespian that I am, I realized that it was entertainment at the time. And I was more fascinated by the stories that were being created and choreographed and the characters that were out there versus just the brute wrestling or anything else like that. That was just a conduit. That was just the backdrop for these soap operas that were being played out. And
I have a
the
request. I have a request. I want you to continue what you're saying, but I also want to grab your most favorite clip in wrestling history, and I'll grab it and I'll edit that into this video.
Okay, that'd be great.
And maybe you can narrate and talk through it, but we'll put it over top. But
the one that comes to, boy, there's so many, and maybe I'll just send you a couple. The greatest wrestling match, I think it was from WrestleMania 3, was between Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Macho Man Randy Savage. There was
Referee Dave Hebner doing a tremendous job in this title matchup.
I don't think so.
Contrarily to what Jesse the Body Ventura thinks. Oh, look at that leverage move. Saving himself with that leverage move with that handful of tights. As the Dragon, I don't know, Jess, couldn't tell from my vantage point that he rammed the steel post as well.
I couldn't tell either. But he's hurting, and Macho needs to do something right now.
Macho Man in control once again in this matchup. A reversal, another reversal. Oh, inadvertently rammed right into the referee. Hebner's down and out. Clothesline by Savage. Both men ripe for the picking, Jess.
And look at referee Hebner's down and out.
He's out of it.
Macho's going to the top. He's going to the top. If he hits him with the elbow, it's over.
Macho Man poised in his favorite position, bombs away.
He got it.
Nailed him with it.
1, 2, 3.
There's
Where
nobody
is
there to
that
count,
referee?
Dave Hebner is still out of it.
Macho's won this match, Monsoon.
Knocked unconscious. There's Hebner now. Macho Man just turned him over, trying to slap a little life into him.
Macho's going up again. He's going to really do him in. No, he's going out to the... What's he doing?
He's going out. Where's he going? He's trying to get the bell away from the timekeeper. That's how he originally put the Dragon out of commission, Jess.
He's going to do it again. Hey,
there's the Animal. The Animal snatches the bell. And he gets nailed by the champion. And Hebner just now making it to his feet, and Savage has got the bell back. Give me a break.
Look at that.
Oh,
flagrant interference from
the
the
Animal
outside.
pushed him right off. I think the bell rammed Savage in the head, Jess. But the champion's still in control now. A small package by the Dragon.
No!
He got him. I can't believe it. History is made.
You talk about a miscarriage of justice, Monsoon. Flagrant outside interference on the part of Animal Steel.
History made here in the Silverdome, part of WrestleMania 3.
The winner of this contest and new Intercontinental Champion, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat.
Standing ovation by this capacity crowd. Elizabeth was in tears. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, the new Intercontinental Heavyweight Champion.
Well, all I gotta say, Gorilla Monsoon, is that Steamboat better cut that belt in half and give half of it to George the Animal Steel. Because without Animal Steel's flagrant interference, Macho Man Randy Savage would have won. He had Steamboat pinned for 30 or 40 seconds. Deny that.
But the referee was out of it, Jess. I'm not denying that fact.
A miscarriage of justice.
There he is, the reigning, current Intercontinental Heavyweight Champion, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, along with George the Animal Steel.
something about it was like a ballet in the ring, just the physical wrestling as the performers. They really put on an amazing show, and I've heard other wrestling fans say that that's one of the greatest just actual wrestling matches of all time. When it really went to another level, I think it was Hell in the Cell between The Undertaker and Mick Foley, where they had this big cube fence through it, and twice Mick Foley fell either through the fence onto the mat, which just looked absolutely terrifying. It was a stunt, never seen anything like it. And then The Undertaker also threw him off of the cube, off the top of it, onto just the ground in front of his children. And I was watching this and I was just like, this is next level entertainment. This is Jackass meets everything else. But the thing that really caught me with, I would say this, it's The Rock. When I saw him on a microphone controlling an arena, and an at-home television audience at the same time with an eyebrow phrase. And he would throw out these catchphrases, and the audience had memorized his script so much that they could repeat or finish what he was saying for minutes straight. I was like, this is next level. And the documentarian in me has always wanted to bridge the trailer park viewership of fans who watch wrestling to the high class theater goers who are off to see Shakespeare and such, and point out to them like what they're doing in this medium is not that different from either. They are choreographing physical stuff. There's performances. There's there's improv happening, storytelling, character development, voice and speech, and it shouldn't be swept under the rug as just something for a lower class audience. That it really can bridge the two classes together, the intellectuals and the non-intellectuals, I suppose would be the easiest way to put it. So that's something that's really kind of grabbed at me, just from a kid who was watching wrestling growing up. Now I look back upon it, I'm like, this is pretty highbrow stuff to a certain degree, if you look at it from the right perspective, as Obi-Wan would say.
Yeah, well, MMA is they're kind of brought that up to the next level, isn't it? Wouldn't that be the next stratosphere of that? You know, that performance, violence.
Now you get into reality TV, which I always say cops, the old cop, bad boys, bad boys.
They cut that
that
off,
was our,
didn't they got rid of that show.
they got rid of that, but that was our first like reality TV that were unscripted, not I mean there was candid camera, but that was kind of produced and set up. That was the first thing where, and you know, I have a little bit of troubles with calling some things reality TV because they are so produced. Anytime there's a prize, that's a game show. Survivor, The Amazing Race, they're real people, but they have a prize. So I always consider those like game shows.
Yeah, it's weird. It's a weird, like, when you think about the people, you know, sometimes I think about the planet and I think that we're so as people, sometimes we're so like human centric, you know, like I almost sometimes don't like to think about people as much as I do because there's a whole world out there of amazing creatures, you know, birds and goats and cows and fish and all this world of this stuff that is completely unrelated to the human, you know, experience. And there's this, I don't know, I find myself more drawn to animals. I mean, I've always been that way, but like it just seems like, I don't know, media is changing. What kind of videos do you watch? How do you Spencer Kramber digest his entertainment? What are you watching? What's your finding? What you looking at?
Boy, you know, kind of on the popular frame. Yeah, I'm into the whole sci-fi, fantasy, pop culture. So you mentioned Game of Thrones. I was a huge fan of that. I want to be watching The Power of the Ring, or The Ring of Power, whatever it might be.
I heard that's crap.
Last of Us. Yeah, I've heard varying reviews on that. I just
You ever watch The Critical Drinker?
No.
Okay, you should watch this guy. He's a Scottish guy who's written 2 books. He's got a podcast called The Critical Drinker, and he does reviews and does live streams about stuff. And I value his opinion in most things, but sometimes not. But a very smart individual when it comes to like, because there's so much content, and he kind of strips it down a little bit. See, kind of shows he's a good opinion. Anyway, the Critical Drinker. There's a shout out for that. But
Critical Drinker. I enjoy that. I like things being broke down. So I like to go see a movie and then getting to know the movie better. So I like coming back and seeing behind the scenes footage. People like New Rock Stars, Eric Voss, who are breaking down the Easter eggs and here's how this connects with that. And I'm also into world building content. I love Denis Villeneuve, Dune movie that came out a couple years ago, and I love just hearing how these writers are creating these worlds and these perspectives and the future. Like the Butlerian Jihad that's supposed to happen in 10,000 years in the world of Dune, where we go to war with the thinking machines. And it's like, wow, this is really connected to what we learned in like Terminator and the Matrix and everything else. Is It is part of this one uniform thought of eventually artificial intelligence will get to a point where 20,000 years from now, where it's illegal to have thinking machines because we've learned the wrongs of our ways, and that we can't put too much into power as humans into things. And as you were talking about, with Avatar 2, I don't know if on the Shroom Watch, how it gravitated seeing the connection to nature
Well,
that we should
the only
have.
thing the mushrooms does is it cuts out the bullshit, so you get the visual element because it strips away the dialogue and it strips away the annoying characters, and you can actually just see it as a visual $200 million mushroom extravaganza
Experience. Just it's a
yeah that's the only
mushroom experience.
and I have a small projection into the future. I think it's might be like this might become the Avatar 2 would be the equivalent of Pink Floyd's soundtrack being played to The Wizard of Oz. I think that's what's going to happen with this thing. And as mushrooms get more accepted into reality, which they are, there'll be more people doing little Avatar 2 mushroom experiences. I think mushrooms are great in certain contexts. Like I usually like to jump out into nature when I do it and stuff like that. But when you can see an IMAX 3D of $200 million on screen, it could be a once, you're not going to do a lot, but that would be a fun experience.
Down on Abbott Kenny, you see some of those storefronts that have a big glass and they'll have a chair sitting there. And I always laugh thinking about seeing a person just sitting in that chair, watching the world go by through this window, on a sidewalk, and being like, wow, the HD quality is really nice. This is so lifelike. This is amazing. Because that is, to a certain point, you can sit in a park and watch life. You can see two dogs, back to your point, interact and see the universe in that interaction. We don't need so much of this, all the bells and whistles, and the phones and the screens are amazing. But yeah, stepping outside and just people watching, or just grass watching, watch a tree sway in the wind for a little bit and think about the life of that tree and the experience that's been on being in one place and watching it grow, or reading somebody's book about the perspective of a gorilla that's been in a mall zoo for its life, and how it interacts with an elephant. That's the one and only Ivan that I just got done reading with my daughter. I love writers. I think if there was one other career that I could be gifted, it'd be so amazing to just be a brilliant, talented writer. I get in my head too much. I can't even name my characters. I get stunted just with that.
Now you can just tell that was that Chapwit or something like that. There's like some sort of AI that'll write your whole thing for you if you just plug it in.
No way.
Have you seen
I did not know this.
They've been using it for like news articles. Some people have been. It was this new AI that was writing people's papers for them when they put the information into the computer. Anyways, I don't know. It's like something. Maybe I'll put up on the screen. I don't know. But what are you doing with the rest of your day?
What else am I doing with the rest of my day? Connecting with some students. So, like I said, I go around and I teach. And one thing that I do when I teach at like a college, I love working with college students just because they're so at the beginning of their career, and I think that they're craving guidance. They're like, just help me figure out how to negotiate this. So I talk to a lot of students about finding your inflexible work so you can get your flexible work so you can continue doing your thing. And just got a message from a couple of students saying that they're in town and they want to try to get together. So we're going to try to get together for a groundling show, something like that. I'm off today. I was casting yesterday. I was casting a Vanguard callback at 200 South La Brea. Tomorrow I'm running a VRBO callback over Zoom. That's been one thing that's fascinating, is a lot of commercial auditioning work had always been in person, which was great. But then COVID hit and a lot of the studios closed their doors. The casting facilities shuttered and gave up their leases, and they're not opening back up because now we're using self-tapes. So every actor has now got their home set up with their lights and a backdrop, and they're figured out their camera and how to edit, or they're auditioning via Zoom, where they're hopping on a Zoom call like this and being directed by someone like me, and I'm recording it and putting it up on a website for the producer advertising agency and the director to watch. So I'll be doing that tomorrow for a VRBO audition, and Friday hopefully working. But today's my day off, but it's a work day for myself, which is something that I think we all need to award ourselves, is kicking in that executive function and being like, there was definitely a part of my youth where I was like, I'm going to sit around all day and sleep in. And now I'm like, no, I'm my own boss today. And I think of Pat, what's his name? Pat Praft. He was a writer of like Bachelor Party and worked on Naked Gun and movies like that. And he would wake up in the morning, his little office where he'd go write as a screenwriter, but he would wake up in his bedroom, and he just worked out of his house, but he would still like put on a shirt, put on a tie, put on his slacks, and he'd go downstairs into his office and he would work. And he still treated it like a business, where he got dressed up and everything like he was going into an office back in the day. And I kind of admire that. I like that mentality. I'm wearing shorts right now underneath this, button down shirt.
I'm Donald ducking it right now. I have nothing underneath this. This is
You're Pooh Bearing it?
Yeah, I'm Pooh Bear.
And I think there's something. So yeah, the rest of the day is I'm going to go to the gym, keep myself healthy, wealthy, and wise.
What's your, okay, I got 3 or 4 different more questions before I let you go. First, what are you eating to stay in shape? And second, what do you recommend as the best way of learning your lines?
Oh man. Let's start with the lines question first, because I do have a little bit of a teaching lecture on this. When you do a play, your aunts come and see you and they pull you aside and they're like, oh my God, that was so great. You did so good. How do you memorize all those lines? I grew up in Minnesota, and our egos kicked in. We're like, oh, learning my lines is one of the last things that I do. It's the character. It's the least important. It's the character that I develop in my, I connected with a parrot, and that's part of this. And I'm like, no, it is so important to memorize your lines and to learn how you memorize your lines, because we all do learn differently. So to say like, oh, and you can grab bits and pieces from people. I think Anthony Hopkins literally recites his line 1,000 times. He just goes around and says it and says it and says it and says it. And that's his approach. If I get a script, let's say I get a scene and it's a multiple page scene, and what I do, I've developed my own technique where I go through and I read it a couple of times, and then I break it up into beats, and I try to make them into palatable sizes. So let's say there's 20 lines, and I'll probably break it up into, just being a little bit of a math person, I'll break it up into 5 lines 4 times. And I'll try to find where there's a little bit of a beat change that the writer has put in. Somebody walks in, there's a discovery, something like that, or the subject changes. Yeah, so there's a beat. So, and then I'll be like, okay, here's 1, here's 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got 5 different sections, about 4 lines. I can memorize 4 lines. I can get that down. So I start at the beginning, and I just repetition. I try to find the nuances of the lines. If there's imagery in it, I'll draw a circle around that, so that way I can really kind of put some like alligator brackets. If there's if something repeats, there's a word. I try to see like what breadcrumbs the writer has left me. If they use the same word twice or something like that, or if I'm repeating something that somebody else says, I try to connect those thoughts. And then I get those 4 lines down until they're to a point where it's just like, okay, I got those 4 lines, do it a couple more times. And now I'm going to add on part 2. And I'll work on part 2 individually, get that down. All right, got that to a point. Now I'm going to tether part 1 to part 2. Now I've got that whole segment, and I'm going to just rehearse that. And now, okay, feel good with those 2 parts. Now let's focus on part 3 by itself. Work. Got that down. Now let's add on to 1, 2, and 3 until I've got all of the scene down. So I kind of work through it. So I break it up into palatable pieces.
What's the timeline on that? What's the timeline of that? What you just described, how long does it take?
Maybe 30 minutes to an hour.
Really?
Depending upon how much I'm really focused. And as I've gotten older, I've become less bogged down in the specifics. And I realize that if I focus on the kind of the imagery of what is happening in the scene, I can get it a lot quicker. That's been a talent that I've been able to pick up. And if there's a monologue, if there's a big chunk where it's just really I'll kind of work that on the side, because I'm like, okay, that's just me kind of free flowing. So I got to really kind of dive into that, and I'll just kind of put that in wherever. If I'm doing a play and I have a monologue, I'll start working on that right away. I won't wait until I get to that point of the script. I'll usually start kind of put that off to the side. And if I need a break, another little trick is working late at night. I'll work on lines before going to bed, and I'll be tired. But I wake up in the morning, I'll be in the shower, and all of a sudden be like, "Oh, what was I working on last night?" Da 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 da, and it just flows out of me, and I'm like, "Oh wow, my brain really processed it and absorbed it in the middle of the night, and I'm able to retain it and
Wow.
regurgitate it a
I
lot
think that's
better
a
then."
talent.
So
That's a talent within itself. Much like that Meg Tilly once said, they asked her a long time ago how she memorized her lines, and she goes, "That's the least hard thing to do, or that I'm doing up here, or something like that." Like once because like when you're in a scene and you've done it with the acting that I've done, and it just seems, or even stage stuff when I was a kid, it flows through you, and that's the rush, is that like all the learning, all the reciting, all the mesmerizing and memorizing and stuff like that. When you're on that and it says action, it's an automatic.
yep. Here's the phrase that I learned and I adopt. First, you want to learn the lines, and then you forget the lines so you can play the lines. And you definitely want to get to that point where you've done all the work and you've, like I was just talking about, and you've learned them. And then once you forget them, you're not focused on remembering them anymore. That's when you truly play the lines.
Yeah, and that's the
And
rush, that's the kick.
yeah,
That's the kick that you're trying to describe earlier, that I was trying to get you to describe. That kick is very, very addicting.
yes. When you're up there and you're in it and you're not thinking about, because when you're truly in character, you're not thinking about what's coming next. You and I have no idea what's going to happen 10 seconds from now. We can assume that we're going to sit here and just keep on talking to each other, but there's a universe where that door breaks in and a robber comes in, and I don't know that's about to happen. The character of Spencer in real life cannot be prepared for that.
Well,
My
I've got a
assumption
surprise
is
for
we're going to
you.
sit.
You're going to have a knock at your
Oh,
door in 2 seconds.
and that's the thing that I tell, your character doesn't know what, so you have to forget as the character, as the actor playing the character, you have to forget. You can't anticipate what's about to happen. Otherwise, the audience will see that. They're more interested in you, not what you don't know as the character. So you can find it as the character. The audience loves discovery. And if you aren't discovering anything as the actor in the character, you're really cheapening the whole experience for everybody. So I like the whole story. There were two football players that were getting drafted, for one first choice and second choice, and some team is interviewing football quarterback number one, and they say, if we pick you number one overall, what's the first thing you're going to do? And he says, well, I've worked really hard to get here, and I'll probably, honest to God, get a bunch of my friends, go to Vegas and celebrate, have a big old party, and have a great time. Okay, great, kind of makes sense. And they ask the second quarterback, what are you going to do if we take you number one overall? And he said, I'm going to ask for a playbook, and I'm going to start working on it. And I tell that to college students and actors of all ages, because I say, when you get a role, it's not time to celebrate. It's the beginning of the job. It's time to grab that script if you're playing Richard III or Hamlet or whoever, and really start the work. Because what you want to do when you show up on set is, you definitely don't want to be nervous about, do I remember my lines? You want to be the first person to get the script out of your hands after you get your blocking. Let's say for a play, the director goes through, you get all your blocking. All right, let's run it again. You want to be able to say, all right, I'm going to put down my script. Stage manager, if I call line, will you give me my line? And every actor on that set is going to go, holy shit,
Yeah.
we have to raise our game, because this person's already playing, whereas I'm just still learning.
Well, and then
Right.
they'll bring you up to your game as well. Like even when I did that Chicky Birds thing, that pilot, and I worked with my friend Ethan and Sasha, and it was really it was a pilot, but like when everybody's in place and the machine's sort of going, it's a really fun time. Like
Mhm.
it's like that. It's a really fun, nerve-wracking, but also being with Sasha and Ethan, who are professional and they're working and getting paid for it. It elevated me as well, and that was something you can't really predict, because then you're like, oh, I'm showing up as well now.
I love working with actors. I love being on set because you got to be in the moments, and it's, if you dwell too long on the past, you end up depressed. If you dwell too long on the future, you end up anxious. But if you're in the moment, that's where you find serenity. And so, Brett, thank you for having me. I appreciate this so much.
Yeah, we went long.
Yeah, we did, man. This is a good conversation. Well, it's just like back in the day when we were schlepping on 52 Dudley and just getting to know each other.
We didn't even talk about the stories on Dudley. We'll have to do that again.
We didn't. Yeah.
That's
but you're a hell of an artist. You're an amazing interviewer, and I can't wait to see what you continue producing. And just thank you for staying on me. And I'm glad the universe kept us together.
Yeah, and same. I'm thankful that you came on the show. Do you want to plug anything? Do you want to promote or see where people can find your work?
Absolutely. If you want to learn more from me and what I do, check out Keep It Real Acting. Keep It Real Acting. Just a simple Google company run by a bunch of actors and teachers who are helping actors learn how to navigate this crazy, wonderful world that we exist in. And that's where you get all my little tips and tricks and everything else. And if you want any private coaching, you can just find me through there. So thank you so much, buddy.
Thanks. Hey, man, it's good to hang out, man, and have a great rest of your day. And I'll hopefully have this up. I'll send you a link. If you want me to play any video, did we talk about anything that we should?
Yeah, the wrestling thing. I'll maybe send you some links of.
Can you send me one of your acting things too?
Yes, I'll send you my reel too.
All right, I'll send you. All right. I'll play that right now, and we'll end. Spencer Kramber. Am I pronouncing that? What is it? What is
Kramber? You are correct.
What
Kramber.
Nationality is that?
I think it's German, English, Saxon something. I don't know. We probably took off a G at some point. It was probably Kramberg. I don't know. I'm the only Spencer Kramber in North America. That's the one thing I do know. There's no other Spencer Kramber. I've known you for so long. Before he came on, I was like, do I even know how to say his last name? I was like, you do. I kind of judge people's intelligence by if somebody says Kramber, I'm like, oh, you.
I thought about that for a second.
Yeah, but you're wise.
As long as he had other targets for his abuse, she avoided his rage.
So if these children protect her from abuse, why is she putting them up for adoption?
We believe
You sure this doesn't look familiar?
No, sir, it does not.
It should. It's got your boys all over it. Especially our hero, PFC, right? I think it might have even have been his. He was a little messed up, wasn't he?
I like to travel. I have friends and family all over the world. Hola. Lupe!
¿Y cómo te puedo ayudar, Steve?
Slow down. Slow down. No calling cards get in the way of my bro time.
Eu sinto falta dos seus dentes amigáveis.
Finally, I can stay in touch with everyone. Gang!
No more call, Steve. No more.
I'm so late. Have you seen my watch?
Me too. I don't know.
Hey, buddy.
We're out of milk.
I thought I just got some.
I spilled it. I'm gonna need for you to pick them up from school,
right.
And I'm pregnant.
From Canada leads behind a new high-pressure system.
Nope.
No.
Oh, no.
Time to go, Teddy.
Listen to your dad, Teddy.
I had to spend over $600 on this Vitamix blender, but it has a 2.5 horsepower I demand.
So what are you guys thinking?
I'm thinking new set of clubs.
No, you're not.
No, you're not.
Housekeeping.
Come in. Didn't I meet you today at the pool?
Žere hlavně pražáky, jmenuje se Jožin. Jožin s Pážin, močálem se plíží. Jožin s Pážin, k vesnici se blíží. Jožin s Pážin.